No, we're not talking about maracas, but we're talking about your Zhiyun Crane M2, and in this video we're gonna test it with the three devices it was built for. A mirrorless camera, precisely the Sony a6500. We're gonna test it with the smartphone and the action camera, the GoPro 5 and 6. First of all, guys, I want to say thank you to the Zhiyun company to send this item for free. Although I will be completely honest in my review and I will give you the pros and cons I came across with. Now, in this video, we're going to focus on some of the specs of the gimbal and the overall performance. We're going to test it in three different settings. With the a6500, we're going to film some architecture, then we're going to do some travel vlogs on the smartphone, and we're going to try some parkour with a GoPro. Let's start with the first kit, a6500 and the Sigma 30mm 1.4. It's a great setup, and it actually balances pretty good on this tiny gimbal. And the gimbal performs amazingly for what it is, to be honest. I just had to set up the motors to high, which is the strongest power. I didn't have any problem. It could actually handle the vortex mode as well, which I was expecting some trouble with, but again, super fine. And I didn't encounter any issue, apart from maybe when I was running, probably with my wrist I did some sudden movements and the gimbal reacted accordingly, but otherwise it's pretty smooth even with a 30mm lens. So if you probably fit a 16 or a wider lens, I think you can achieve very smooth footage. But judge by yourself in these clips I film around my area. In general, to balance this gimbal, bear in mind that for balancing the tilt axis, for example, your camera can only face forward or upwards. So you won't be able to balance it with the camera facing down. The arm will just touch the side, or for some reason the gimbal will block your arm. So you can't really test the gimbal with the camera facing down. But it's still enough, to balance it properly. As you can see here on the plate, you've got two rails. So for this setup, you want to use the one further out. Let's now talk about smartphones. My friend Alberto owns an iPhone and we wanted to test it with this metal cage, which is by Helium. It's called Helium Core, and we wanted to test it with an anamorphic lens as well. This was just impossible. The cage was too heavy, completely unbalanced, so we didn't manage to do so. I checked the video on YouTube and you can apparently balance it adding a counterweight on the roll axis, but I didn't buy any extra tool, and so we couldn't try with that. And then I switched to my smartphone, which is a Samsung Galaxy A8, which is lighter than the one with the cage, of course. Still, it's not great in terms of balancing. I think in general, compared to an action camera or a compact camera, the phone has a thin and long shape, and the weight is just distributed more unevenly on the axis. But now, a short vlogging test around London with this setup. Right guys, as you can see we are at Tower Bridge, built in 1886, and guess why it's called Tower Bridge? It's not because of the two towers you can see right there, but it's actually because of the Tower of London, which is right here, and we're gonna visit right now. By the way, I'm not using the selfie option of the gimbal, I'm just using the rear camera of the phone because it's actually faster and I can see myself in the screen. So that's a tip if you want to keep it into consideration. I feel like a tourist. Right guys, I found this set of beams along the Thames. It's amazing. Let's see how it performs here. There are really a lot of bones here guys, that's getting creepy. That looks like a rib. What do you think? It fits perfectly. It must have been one of my relatives. Ugh. Now, if you use the GoPro in this plastic cage, it's amazing. So it performs really well. If you're gonna add a microphone with a metal cage on top, that's when you're gonna have some, not troubles, but it won't balance properly because it will just be too heavy on the top. It still performs great, so for vlogging, bomb. This combination, the Crane M2 and the GoPro, performs as well as the Ronin S with my Sony a7R III Master lenses. It's just a mini version of that. It's amazing, it's really smooth, very reliable, so totally recommend it. Now let's put this gimbal into action with an action camera, some parkour action. It's now time for some parkour action. Let's roll. Right guys, I'm following Matt doing some jumps here with the follow mode. Let's give it a go. Guys, I'm trying some running. As you can see, I'm pretty shaky, but I'm sure the gimbal will be steady. It doesn't spin enough. Now, I gave the gimbal to Matt, first time user, so we're gonna see how the crane performs with the first time user. Happy with that, Matt? Let's see. I'm gonna give you some generic comments overall as well. In terms of motor noises, I couldn't hear any noise, even with the mic on top of the GoPro or through the smartphones. They're really quiet. I only felt some friction when I was using the GoPro with the mic on top because it was probably a bit too heavy and the motor was struggling. Let's talk about the locking mode. Zhiyun introduced a quite clever locking system. You have two locks, one on the pan axis and one for the other two axes basically. You can find the one for the pan axis here at the back, this red lever. And then they put a tiny bar right here, which when pushed up will lock the roll and the pan axis at the same time. You just need to make sure that they are aligned before pushing it up basically. Now, once you have your crane balanced though, you cannot lock it back without losing the settings. So you need to unscrew everything up and going back to square one. So whenever you want to unlock it, you have to rebalance your gimbal. I heard a lot of people complaining about that already, but to be honest, I do it with any other gimbal I owned. And what I do, quick tip, I just take photos of the settings, so the next time I have to balance it, I already know where the level is, and it takes me literally 1 minute to set it up again. Menu. You can access the menu with these buttons here in the front. You've got a tiny screen, and you can access basics and straightforward options like the motor strength and the different modes of the gimbal. One of the cons I came across with was this joystick button here. I was scared actually to lose it because it comes off. Especially I was scared to lose it when I was walking with the gimbal attached to my hips. The plate is actually a quick release plate, and I don't really see the point of having this, to be honest, because unless you want to switch to two different devices or two different cameras, which also means you need to have two plates, I don't really see the point because I can't use the plate on any other of my gear. The app is very simple and straightforward as well as the menu. Just a few options, but very nice. They work properly like the time lapses you've seen around Tower Bridge. These are my initial comments, guys, on this tiny gimbal. If you want me to test it with any particular gear, let me know in the comments below. So to conclude, I recommend this gimbal. It's great. I have to be honest, it works very well. Top for me was using it with a GoPro. So I totally recommend it for travel vloggers who used a GoPro. It's a great combination. You can put a metal cage and put a mic on top, and you're pretty sure you're gonna get some nice and smooth footage. I was very impressed how the crane also performed with the a6500. This is a quite heavy piece of gear altogether, and the gimbal just handled it very nicely. I think overall, even with the smartphones, worked very well. I think I achieved pretty smooth shots. Again, not a fan of filming on smartphones, but that's a different story. So set that. Don't forget that Zhiyun is also launching the new gimbal Smooth Q2. It's a mobile phone's gimbal. You can find it on Kickstarter. You can check it out and actually give a pledge if you want to at the link in the descriptions below. I hope this video answers some of your questions and doubts about the Zhiyun Crane M2. I will catch you soon, and until then, arrivederci. Ciao belli.
Seems all good times come and go.